There are hidden costs that we don't necessarily think about. So a lot of people were expecting a windfall. The next best time to plant a tree is right now. Hello and welcome back to another personal finance video with me, Kyle. Today we're going to be talking about dual income hidden costs. We're going to be talking about tariffs as well today. And then the last thing we're going to say before we get out of here is how to start investing. So let's go ahead and start out with the dual income hidden cost topic first. So a lot of people are dual income these days, and that is not necessarily a bad thing because for most people it is a way to survive or to, manage to live out the dreams that they have for themselves and the goals that they have for themselves as well. The issue though is that a lot of times with dual income, there are hidden costs that we don't necessarily think about. Yes, we think about daycare if we have children, right? We think about the fact that we have to pay a lot of money for daycare, but that's not really a hidden cost. That's kind of an obvious one that many of us would think about if we were dual income with kids. And this is part of the reason why a lot of people are what we call dinks now. They're dual income with no kids because of those costs. But my wife and I, we for the most part, have been a one-income family. Yes, we have alternative income streams that are coming in. We do a little bit of work for the church, so we get a little bit of money for that. And then, of course, Alora's now getting a little bit of money from YouTube and things like that. And then, of course, I do tutoring in summer school and side jobs and stuff that bring in some money as well. But ultimately, all of those little side stream money that we bring in are very small. They aren't a huge impact on the budget. The primary set of money that we're bringing in is my teaching job. So there are things that we're able to do, and Alora posts lots of shorts and videos of what we spend in a week and all these different things. There's things we can do that other people can't. And then when they look at our costs, they say there's no way that you're spending this amount and all this kind of stuff, like somehow we're not living our own life here. But that's something that we're going to talk about right now is what are the hidden costs of having a dual income where both people, both parents, are going and doing a 9-to-5 job. They both have full-time jobs and all that, and they have kids and all that. What are those costs that you're paying that a single family income family is not having to pay at all? The first one would be gas usage. So if you have 2 jobs, that means you need 2 cars, and that also means those cars are being used regularly to go to work, which of course increases gas costs as well. So really all kinds of transportation stuff, potentially oil changes and all the other things that go with a vehicle and maintaining a vehicle are going to go up because of the fact that 2 vehicles are being consistently used every single day. That is a cost that a single family income doesn't necessarily have as bad of. Yes, we have 2 vehicles, but my wife is not going out every single day having to do errands and things like that. So she's not using up as much gas in compared to myself, I guess, when it comes to vehicle usage. Although her vehicle is also more fuel efficient as well, so that probably helps too. The other thing that can be a hidden cost for dual income families is food related. So when you have both parents working, you're going to be less motivated and have less time to think about food, thinking about dinner. That's the age-old question that everybody is bothered by when they get home is, what are we going to eat for dinner? And nobody really wants to talk about it, right? They want to push that topic off because it's, a drudgery every single day. Well, part of the reason why it's a drudgery is because you both just came home. You're both just trying to unwind and not think about another task to do, but it's a task that has to be done. And so what ends up happening for a lot of people is they will go out to eat. They will think of something that is convenient that they can do for dinner that ends up costing them more money, because when you pay for convenience, you pay more money compared to somebody who is not paying for convenience. So we're single income. My wife handles the meal planning. She handles the cooking and all that kind of stuff because she has a little bit more time than I do to think about that. And so she's able to prep for that stuff. And that helps cut down on costs, because when you are cooking at home and you are buying groceries for those meals, you can reduce the cost of food in general. When I'm talking about restaurant plus groceries here. So when you combine those two things, that's your food cost. You can dramatically reduce that cost when you are eating at home and you're not going out a whole lot or buying convenient kits and things like that that would cost more money than to just buy the ingredients and put it together yourself. So there's that challenge of not having the motivation or the time. And you'll find that this is an issue that pops up again and again with some of these other hidden costs. The next one is shopping. So when you have to go out and buy things like grocery shopping, for example, if you don't have the motivation and time for that, then you're going to hire out a third party to do that for you. Now, I know some of the different pickup curbside type services that are out there are essentially free, right? They're a service that's tacked on to the company, the grocery store that you're using. Like, for example, I believe Walmart has a curbside pickup, and I think it's free to do. But if you use things like Instacart and all these other companies out there, those ones generally charge you money in addition to the grocery shopping. So that means you're paying more for your grocery shopping compared to other people. And the big reason why you are is because, well, both of you are working. You're both going 9-to-5 jobs. When you don't want to spend that time going to the grocery store and buying those things because you've already spent a whole lot of time being drained at work. And then, of course, you don't really want to spend your time on the weekends either, going Saturday or Sunday grocery shopping. So again, you don't want to spend that time there either. And so you're willing to hire out that service to somebody else. And that service is generally not free compared to doing it yourself. So again, kind of like the food one, that time and motivation is the sticking factor that causes the prices to go up in those areas. The next one is outsourcing other kinds of services. So you're more likely to hire a cleaning service to clean your house because, again, who's got the motivation to take care of that when you are working, right? You both come home, you're both drained. Neither of you really want to spend your time doing that, and neither of you want to spend your weekend doing it either. So that becomes another service that has to be hired out for your convenience. Another one that goes along with outsourcing would be things that require maintaining the house. Things that you could do that are DIY, but because of, again, work and time and things, you don't have the desire to do it. I already mentioned cleaning, but it could be other things too, such as yard work. So things like mowing the lawn and stuff like that. You don't have the time or the desire for it, so you hire out somebody else to do it for you, and that ends up costing you more in the long run. The next one that is a hidden cost that people don't always think about are work-related costs. So if you both have a college degree, well, that means you both probably have student loan debt that you have to pay for as well. A lot of careers that are those big building block careers that require a college degree or some sort of certificate, there are other fees that go with that. Sometimes you're paying an association fee, or you're paying a license fee, or some sort of membership that you have to be a part of. And with you're both working, then you're both having to pay those kinds of things to do that. Now, I know not every job is like that, but those are some work-related issues that could come up. Maybe there's a conference that you have to go to, and so you have to pay for the travel expenses and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. So those can be challenges that, again, a single family income may not have to consider. The next one is logistics. So anything that has to do with family logistics is a hidden cost that a dual income family has that a single income family does not have. This is, for example, you may have to pay for a babysitter in order to take care of something that otherwise a parent, the one that's staying home, could just handle the kids for that situation. So whatever comes up, I don't know, maybe you guys have like some sort of dentist appointment or something that you have to go do, and you're both working and everything, so it's not like you can just drop the kids at the house and that's it. So you have to hire a babysitter for it, and that's an expense that you have to pay for. Another thing could be transportation to events. So if you are trying to coordinate things out, you may have to take off work to go get your kids somewhere. You may have to spend personal time or those kinds of things. If your company allows you to take sick days in the event that a family member is sick, well, you have to spend sick days to do, take care of kids and things, because you can't, hire a babysitter for that and stuff like that. But if you have a parent at home, that's something you don't have to worry about. My kids, when they get sick, I don't have to worry about who I can get to take care of them while I go to work. I already know the answer to that question. My wife will be the one that takes care of them while they're sick. I can continue to go to work. I don't have to take sick days or do anything like that to take care of them. I can continue to focus on work while she's helping them out. So these are just little logistic things that may be very simple for us single family income families, but very challenging, or can be sometimes stressful, depending on how unplanned it was, to handle if you're a dual family income instead. So again, I understand, kind of wrapping up this thought here, I understand that we can't always have a single family income, but this is, in some ways, I'm trying to share that you may be in a dual income right now, and you may have convinced yourself that it's the only way to survive, but you could be surprised how much money you actually save if you have one parent at home. If you have one parent at home, they now have this unlocked time that they otherwise would not have had, that they can dedicate to handling things that will save you money in the long run. Like my wife, I don't think it's reasonable to expect her to be able to meal plan if she was working a job. I don't think it's reasonable for her to go to the grocery store and, do all the grocery shopping herself if she had a job. If she had a job, she would not be able to have the time to do those things. But because she has the time, she can go and do those things, and we can save money in those areas where other families cannot, due to the fact that she can dedicate focus on those particular areas. So depending on your situation, if you feel like you can make it, why don't you give it a try? That's what we ended up having to do. My wife stopped working and we gave it a shot. We said, well, let's see what'll happen. We're going to try to make it work as best we can, but let's see if we can actually handle it on one income. And I was not making a whole lot of money at that time. I was working at a private school. I was making about $29,000, $30,000 a year. That's gross now. That's before taxes. So that's the income that I was taking home when my wife started to slowly dial back her part-time job. She wasn't working full-time, so she was part-time, and she was slowly dialing back that income so that she could become a stay-at-home parent. And in the long run, I think it ended up being a benefit to us. Yes, it maybe hurt a little bit early on, but once we got our footing and figured things out, and she was able to dedicate her focus and time to saving us money, I think it all ended up balancing itself out in the long run anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here, and that is tariffs. So if you're somebody like me who watches the news a lot, reads a lot of news articles, and is generally aware of things that are going on in our country, and by our country I mean the United States. If you're not from the United States, well, thank you for watching anyway. But you might have noticed that the Supreme Court recently ruled that Trump's tariffs are unconstitutional and that they're wanting to take a lot of those away. Now, you might be thinking, why would I talk about something like this on a personal finance channel? And don't worry, we'll get to that eventually. There will be a point to it. I'll circle back to why it's relevant. But while you're looking at this, you'll see that this could be a big effect on our country one way or the other. Unfortunately, when we look at this, people are wondering what to do, what's going to happen to the money, right? All the money that was collected, is that going to get refunded to somebody? Like, what's going to happen? The Supreme Court didn't say anything. They just said it was unconstitutional, and then they just left it at that. So there's a lot of unknowns right now. Some people are saying, well, it's probably going to go to the companies. Some people are saying it should go to the consumer. Personally, I feel like it should go to the consumer, since if we believe that tariffs are passed on to the consumer, the customer, then why should the companies receive the refund if they passed on the cost, right? Doesn't make sense a whole lot to me. It seems like they'd be getting double profit at that point. They'll get the profit that they were making off of you buying their stuff, and then they would get the money, the refund money on top of all of that. And what does the consumer get? They paid the tariff, basically. So, not to get too far into the weeds here, because it can be something that can be infuriating, or it can be something that people rely on. They think that, oh, these refund checks are coming. Like there's the governor in Illinois who wants every person in Illinois to get $1,700 in a check for these tariffs that were now ruled unconstitutional. And if you're banking on that, right, if you're pinning your hopes on the government giving you money after a tariff or whatever has been changed, I have some bad news for you. Generally, that doesn't happen. I think about the student loan stuff. I have student loans, and Biden, when he was president, all the hoopla was about student loan forgiveness, and he had even mentioned that he was going to do something like that. And what ended up happening? Nothing. Most people did not get their loans forgiven. Yes, there were a few people here and there that did get their loans forgiven, but if you look at their situations, those people were taken advantage of by for-profit colleges and stuff like that. So it kind of made sense that they would have their loans forgiven, but that was not the promise. The promise wasn't, I'm going to forgive the loans for a handful of people. The promise was that a ton of people were going to get their loans forgiven. So a lot of people were expecting a windfall. And what happened? Nothing. It did not actually happen. And that kind of circles around to the point that I'm trying to get to, right back to the first personal finance part of this, is that if you're expecting the government to bail you out, or you're expecting the government to give you a boost, it's probably not going to happen. I would not bank my finances on any of that ever happening. I've mentioned that we're about to pay off the remainder of my student loan debt. I'm not going to wait around for somebody to come in and forgive it, because I'll probably be dead by the time they decide to do that. Because it'll be decades and decades from now when they finally decide to deal with the problem. So I have to take things into my own hands and start to control my personal finances, right? Control the things that I can control and make my life better for myself. And so you're going to kind of have to do that same thing. I know tariffs, they hit all of us. The inflation also hit all of us, and all the other economic uncertainties going on with jobs up, down, all around, and everything else, right? It's a very uncertain macroeconomic problem going on around everywhere. But we can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about that. All we can do is focus on what we can control. We can control how much debt we take on. We can control budgeting. We can control what we're spending our money on. And if we take control of those things, we can actually bail ourselves out rather than having the government do it for us. Because, like Dave Ramsey has said, if you're worried about what's going on at the White House, you should be more worried about what's going on in your house. Because honestly, what's going on over there, if they even did come up with a solution for something, it's going to take years for it to trickle down to the every regular person, because that's usually how things go. Rules change and then it takes time. And if you need a bailout now, it's not going to happen. It's going to take a really long time for anything to happen. So you have to control things for yourself. So that's kind of the wheeling back around to the personal finance part that I was talking about earlier, getting back to it. So what can we control? Well, here's some things. I just mentioned a few of them, but let me go ahead and list off some other ones. So we can control things by budgeting. If you have not budgeted or you're budgeting inconsistently, now's the time to start budgeting, because prices are continuing to go up. Things are still fairly uncertain in certain areas, right? Certain industries and stuff like that. So you need to start controlling your spending. And the only way you can do that is by budgeting. And that gets the other one, controlling spending. If you are budgeting, then it's time to start looking at categories where maybe you're spending too much, and it's time to start trimming those down. We can reduce debt. If you can get rid of debts, right, pay them off faster, then you are freeing up money that you can then use for other parts in your budget. And that'll allow you to breathe easier. So if you're really worried about food or whatever certain category you're trying to pay for, well, try to get those debts paid off quicker so that you can then move that money over to handle those other things. Of course, that might require some sacrifices to get rid of those debts faster. But if you do that, remember, think of it as a short-term thing. I'm not doing this forever. I'm making sacrifices for a little bit of time so that I can, in the long term, really enjoy my finances. And then, of course, increasing efficiency. That means that making your dollar go further than it normally would. This can be things like negotiating prices on your internet, negotiating prices on TV, negotiating prices on your phone bill, even negotiating prices on your insurance. How do you negotiate? Well, I've had videos in the past that I've already talked about it, but find a competitor and use that competitor to compete against the company you're currently using, to either A, force your current company you're working with to reduce their price, or B, you give up on them and go with the new guy and get a cheaper rate that way. So there are things that we can do to help control our finances. And so with all the hoopla right now about tariffs, and it's probably going to be talked about for a whole news cycle, and it's all going to be on everybody's minds and all that, that you can know, while everybody else is going gaga over that, you know that regardless of what happens, regardless of what courts say or what politicians say, you are in control of your finances and you're going to be able to ride it out no matter what the economy's like. If the economy's doing great, then you're going to be doing good too. And if the economy's doing poorly, you have plans and ways to control your finances that you will run through that problem with no issues. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to ingrain into ourselves certain traits, money handling traits, that are going to help us regardless of what the economy is doing and regardless of what politicians are doing. So if you have any thoughts about that, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the third and final topic for today, and that is starting investments. So I've talked about how investing is an important way to build wealth, and it's one of those later steps in the baby steps for Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. And I've come to think, though, that when I talk about investing, we look at the average American. The average American is not investing a whole lot of money. And in fact, there's a lot of people that have no investments whatsoever. And I think part of the reason why that is the case is because a lot of people, their company that they work for, does not offer a retirement plan at all. And so there's no 401k there, or you're job hopping a lot. You're going from job to job to job. And so you're putting a little bit of money into this 401k and a little bit of money into this 401k. And it just keeps on, you keep starting over every single time. And so your money can never get anywhere because you have a 401k over here that you're no longer using, and you have a 401k over here, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people don't necessarily go through the steps to combine their 401ks into one big one so that they can continue to build their nest egg. But there are some other things that you can do if you're trying to think of, okay, I don't have a 401k at the job I'm currently at, or I've been bouncing all over the place, so my money's all over the place. What can I do to start investing in retirement now? Well, there is another thing you can do. You can open up an IRA account. And you can do that by partnering with a broker. There are certain companies out there that when you work with them, you can start a retirement account. And there are a few of them, so I'm going to name off a few right now. There's Robinhood, there's Fidelity, and then there's Vanguard. Of course, there's other ones like Charles Schwab and all that, but I'm not going to spend all day listing off every single name that's out there. I do have, personally, a Robinhood account, but I don't use it for retirement. It was just a thing that back in COVID, there was, a lot of hoopla about the stock market and stuff like that. So I threw in a little bit of money into the stock market, and I just let it sit there. And I used a Robinhood account to do that. So that's why I have a Robinhood account, is because of that. I don't actually use it for retirement or anything like that. But you can use it if you wanted to. And in fact, in my experience with Robinhood, it has been a very user-friendly experience. And their IRA account thing seems pretty simple to do. So what do you do after you pick a company? Well, when you pick a company, you create an account on there, and then you're going to go to their retirement portfolios or offerings, whatever they have. They're all a little bit different. They all offer different things. So you're going to pick one of those retirement things, and then you're going to start investing money into it. So like, for example, Robinhood, they have an IRA account thing that you would open up. And then inside of that, you get to control which stocks you want to buy, if that's something that you're into. Or you can hire their AI investor to do it for you, and so then you're not thinking about it. Some people are like that. A lot of 401ks are like that, right? A lot of 401ks, you're just throwing money into the company's 401k, and you're not really thinking about it, and somebody else is managing it for you. So it's kind of like that. I know Vanguard, I think, has something similar to that too, where you hire, not only do you have an account, like an IRA account, but you also have some sort of advisor that is helping manage your funds too while you're doing it. Ultimately, it's really not super complex. You just pick a company that you're fine with, you create an account, you start setting up a way to put your money in. So maybe you're doing it monthly or whatever, and you start throwing money toward it. And then you can either manage the stock part yourself, or you can have an advisor or somebody manage it for you and then grow it from there. Some things to be aware of if you have an advisor that's doing it for you, which I think some companies you're forced to use an advisor no matter what. There's usually an additional fee that goes with that compared to doing it yourself. And I know some people are really big into that. If you go into, investor type channels and stuff like that, they'll talk about how index funds or ETFs are better than mutual funds, because mutual funds, yes, they have somebody managing it, but you have to pay the fee. Whereas index funds, you don't pay a fee, and they grow just as fast as the mutual funds. So the index funds are better, because you're not paying that, giving up some of your money to have it grow and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole world into that. I'm not going to deep dive into that at all, because, again, this topic is just about starting an investment. Now, before we wrap this up, let's say you do have a 401k at your company. If you have a 401k at your company, make sure you're putting money into it, because a lot of companies will match what you put in up to a certain extent. So make sure you're putting enough money in that the match is happening. And again, like I said, it can get very complicated. Some people say only go up to the match and then do an IRA and all this stuff. To keep it simple, and this is something that I'm doing at the school company that I am working at, I'm putting in, I think it's now 12% of my income into the company 401k. Do I get the match all the way up to that? No. Could I be more savvy about making the money go further or whatever? Probably. But that's not going to be the end-all be-all anyway. I'm going to continue to invest up to and grow up to 15%, because that's the recommended number. And then I'm just going to let it go. 15% invested in, even if it's just in a 401k and it's not some 401k IRA combination of everything. It's fine. It'll still be a good investment and a good pot of money at the end when I do decide to retire. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. For most Americans, to be honest, if you look at the numbers, they don't need to be worried about the math. They need to be more worried about just putting money into an investment account. To be honest with you, if you look at the numbers, that's really what it is. People need to put money into their retirement accounts and stop worrying about the math of it and what the most efficient way to do is, because right now it doesn't matter that you can figure it all out in your head. If you aren't putting any money into a retirement account, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be $0 when you get to the end. And I think that really, that summarizes everything, right? Dave Ramsey says that personal finance is more of a behavior issue than it is a math issue. And that includes retirements and investing too. It's not a math problem for most Americans. It's a behavior problem. We don't really want to save. We want the money right now so we can use the money to buy whatever it is that we want. We don't want to put money slowly away for retirement because, that's less money in our paychecks and that sort of thing. So if you haven't started investing, today is the day to do it. Or tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the next best day. As soon as possible is the best. As I've said before, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is right now. And of course, that's an old adage, but it's still true today. If you haven't started investing, now is the time to do it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop there for today. If you have any thoughts about any of the 3 topics that we've talked about today, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please click like. That really helps. And then, of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do that too. As always, thank you for watching till the end.